Not Shanae Grimes. What is her name? Something Woodley. I can't think of what her name is right now.
1, 2, 3, let's switch this up.
Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a very exciting video. Well, it's exciting for me because it's a video that I've been wanting to do for a while now. I'm hoping to make this like a series on my channel. I don't know how often I'll do it, but I do plan on making this a series, and it is the read it or watch it video. So I'm going to be going through different books that have been adapted into either movies or series. So in this video I'm going to be doing 3 movie adaptations and 3 series adaptation, and basically letting you know whether I think you should watch the adaptation or read the book. So if that sounds interesting, then keep on watching. So these are in no particular order. These could range from books and series that came out, you know, 10 years ago versus ones that came out 10 days ago. It just depends on what I've read and what I've seen. So we're going to start with The Weekend Away, which is a novel by Sarah Alderson that was adapted into a movie on Netflix. So this story follows, they changed her name in the movie. I think her name was like, I forget, it was like Olga or Alda, Alma, something like that in the book. But in the movie I think they changed her name to like Beth or something generic like that. But it basically follows her. She and her friend go away on a trip, like a girls trip, and while they're on the trip her friend goes missing, and the story is basically the main character, trying to recall the events of the night before to try to basically retrace her and her friend's steps to figure out what happened to her friend, where her friend went, why she's missing, and who might be behind it. If I had to choose between reading the book or having watched the movie, I would probably prefer to have read the book. That's not like a shocking answer. Most times the answer is the book is better. Usually the book is always better. But I'm going to explain, because this book wasn't like some groundbreaking, like crazy plot twist, suspense thriller. Like it wasn't anything like crazy. It was a very like basic book. It wasn't anything that was all that. I think I gave it like maybe 3.25 stars or something. But the reason why I think the book was better was because I didn't like what the movie adaptation did with some of the characters and like their motivation. So, and I'm gonna try to do this video without doing like spoilers, but it's gonna be a little bit hard, so bear with me. The movie felt like it was either written or directed by like a feminist, somebody who wanted the women to look good. The book had no issues making the women look bad and calling a spade a spade. But in the movie, they kind of changed it and put a lot of the blame on the male characters, when in the book it wasn't the male characters' fault, or like they weren't the ones that were like the masterminds or whatever. They were kind of just, yeah, they weren't like good in this situation, like they weren't innocent, but they also like weren't the ones spearheading it. It wasn't their idea. They just kind of like went along with it. So the movie basically made it seem like these men were just evil and like taking advantage of them and being aggressive, and the book was not like that. So I'm not sure why the movie tried to paint these male characters to be so like sinister and evil masterminds or whatever, when really in the book it was the women, or I should say the woman. It was one girl. I didn't like that. I liked the fact that the book was very like, it was like, yeah, this is what it is. Like, she was a terrible person. But the movie is like, oh no, like she was victimized. And I'm just like. Next is Gone Girl, which is a film, like it went to theaters film. And this movie follows, I forget what his name was, what the main character's name was. I know in the movie, I think Ben Affleck played the character, but I don't remember what the character's name was. But basically, long story short, it's him and his wife's anniversary. I forget how many years they've been together, but it's their anniversary, and she goes missing. He comes home and she's like missing. The house is like in disarray. It looks like there's been some kind of like break-in or attack or whatever. And so he's trying to figure out like what happened to his wife. But there are like clues. One of the things that his wife does for their anniversary is she does like the scavenger hunt thing. So he's like trying to follow the scavenger hunt clues, also trying to figure out like what happened to his wife, like you know, he's worried of, you know, where she might have gone, you know, if something happened to her, if somebody did something to her, whether or not she's alive. And it's a really good book, probably one of the best books that I've ever read. I think the same year the movie came out was the year I read the book, so like 2014-ish. Very good, highly recommend. I would say if you have to choose between the movie and the book, I would say pick the book. And the only reason why I say that, the movie was actually really good. I think that with the book, as always, you're going to get more details and more in-depth understanding of the characters and stuff like that. But I think the movie still did a good job. The reason why I feel like the book was better, and this might be a little bit biased just because I read the book prior to seeing the movie, so the reaction that I got from the book was like a completely like natural, like I had no idea that this was gonna happen, versus when I watched the movie I already knew that it was coming, so it didn't you know, hit me the same kind of way. But maybe if I had seen the movie first, maybe it would have, I don't know. But the plot twist that you get to like halfway in the book, I forget what chapter it is, I'll put it down here somewhere, whatever chapter it is. When I got to that chapter, when I tell you that my jaw was on the floor, I felt utterly betrayed, flim-flam, swindled, and bamboozled. But I absolutely loved feeling that way. Like, I thought that was amazing that the author was able to lead me down this road and then be like, skirt, psych, and I'm just like, whoa, wait, hold up. So for that reason, if you like that feeling of feeling completely betrayed and thinking that you know what's going on and then finding out that you actually don't know anything, then I would definitely recommend reading the book. I can't say, I don't know if I would have had that same experience with just watching the movie. But like I said, the movie was still really good. Outside of that, I think the movie was still done really well. Next is Luckiest Girl Alive, and this is a Netflix adaptation starring Mila Kunis. And I would say it depends in terms of whether you read the book or watch the movie. This story basically is about this girl who is a survivor of a mass shooting that took place at her high school. And now they're doing, I think this is, I don't know, maybe 10 years later or something, they're doing like a documentary on the whole situation. And she's kind of like moved on in life. She's basically coming back to do this documentary and like basically tell her side of the story in terms of what happened that day and the events that led up to that day. Now, like I said, it depends on what you're looking for as to whether or not you should watch the movie or whether or not you should read the book. I would say that if you are looking for a more palatable story, that's a little more PC, a little more toned down, then watch the movie. If you are here for all of the triggers, then I would say read the book. I didn't see any trigger warnings anywhere on or in the book. So I, first of all, did not know that this story was about like a mass shooting or an active shooting situation in a school setting. I did not know that. I was completely caught off guard when that happened. Versus when you watch the movie, they make it very clear from like the beginning of the movie that she is a survivor of this type of incident. So you're not walking blindly into this when you're watching the movie versus when you read the book. You have no idea. There's nothing that leads you to believe that that is going to be something that happens later on in the book. Like, you know that something happened. They talk about doing this documentary about the 5 and she was a friend of the 5. And so you know that something happened, but you don't know that it's a school shooting and that people, you know, died from that. Like that, I thought it was like going to be like a car accident or something. And she knew that like somebody like slit the tires or cut the brakes or, you know, whatever. That's kind of where my mind went. I had no idea that it was going to be like a school shooting. The visuals that I imagined in my mind when I was reading it, I like can't get those images out of my head. I can see those mental images that I conjured from reading more than I can see the images of the actual movie. I don't even really remember that scene in the movie, but I vividly remember it in the book. I would say there's also a lot of talk about stuff like eating disorders and sexual assault and different things that have to do with socioeconomic status and things like that. There's a lot of that happening in the book. There's not much focus. I'm not gonna say they don't talk about it at all. In the book, it is talked about all the time. Like, she is constantly making references to like her relationship with food and eating and her weight and stuff like that. There's a decent amount of substance abuse, mostly like alcohol, that takes place in the book, like underage substance, alcohol abuse or whatever. There's a lot of that in the book. That book was something. That is a book that will probably stick with me for the rest of my life. The movie was a walk in the park compared to the book. I will say that I didn't fully like the ending of the movie. I just think that the ending of the book was a little more realistic, a little less like happily ever after. Oh, we all get, well, not we, but the main character gets what she wants in the end and just frolics off into the sunset with her perfect life. Like, that's kind of how the movie felt like it ended, versus the book I feel like was a little more realistic. Now, switching over to some series. The first series up is Paper Girls, and that is on Amazon, I think. So this is a graphic novel that was adapted into a series, and the story follows these 4 girls who basically find themselves in the middle of, not the apocalypse, but they basically find themselves in the middle of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Not intergalactic, but like, it's like a war, but it's a war between timelines. And so it's a sci-fi graphic novel that deals with time travel, and these 4 girls get caught up in that. I think that the graphic novel was better. Now, granted, the series only had 1 season, and I don't think it's gonna get renewed for a second. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's gonna get renewed for a second season. It's just gonna be that 1 season. I think that maybe if they were gonna have more seasons, maybe they could incorporate more of the story, but there's a lot of the story that didn't make it into the show. The show really only follows the graphic novel for like maybe the first 1 to 3 episodes, and then after that it just completely goes rogue, and like the writers just did whatever they wanted to do. They basically wrote a whole new show. They start off the same, but they're very different. So in terms of whether you should read it or watch it, it's kind of hard to say because they're really so different. The reason why I even decided to read the graphic novel, I didn't even know the show was coming out. I read the graphic novel because I was told that the graphic novel was similar to Stranger Things, and I definitely understand why it's been compared to Stranger Things. There are a lot of elements of it that are very similar to Stranger Things, and I've seen people be like, oh, they tried to copy Stranger Things. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure the graphic novel came out before Stranger Things came out. So if anything, Stranger Things probably drew inspiration from Paper Girls. Next is Big Little Lies, which is an older show. I forget when that came out. I actually did not know. I started watching the show before I started reading the book because I didn't know it was a book. So I think I watched like the first 2 episodes and I loved it. I absolutely loved the first 2 episodes. And so I went and read the book, finished that, and then it came back to the show. And I think they're both really good. I really liked the directing. I think I liked a lot of the director's choice and the editing choices that went into the show. But I think the script was well written. A lot of the dialogue was very good. But the book was also really good. And I would say that for this one, I can't pick. Like, I can't tell you to watch one or the other. I honestly think you should do both because they're both really like beautiful like pieces of work. The book, I will say, as usual, you get a little more detail about the characters and their, you know, what they're thinking and why they're doing what they're doing. There were a couple of things that they changed in the show. I think it was still done really well. I think I had a little more fun reading the book than I did watching the show, but again, that's one where I think you should do both. If the camera angle changes because my battery died. But moving on to the last book for the video, and that is One of Us is Lying, and this was adapted into a series on, I think, Peacock. So for this one, I would say probably watch it. And I know, right? Crazy. Usually the answer is always read it. But for this one, I would say watch it. Personally, I did not care for One of Us is Lying. I actually liked One of Us is Next, which is the sequel book in that series, better than the first book, which is One of Us is Lying. Now, I'm not sure. I remember hearing that there was going to be a second season of One of Us is Lying that came out on Peacock. I've only seen the first season. Just comparing the first season of the show with the first book in the series, I would say the show was actually better. I didn't really care for the book. I think the book spent a little too much time. To me, I feel like this book was kind of being talked about like it was like this murder, mystery, suspense, you know, whatever. And I feel like when I was reading the book spent a lot more time delving into like the characters and their lives and their drama, which if that's what you're into, then that's fine, but that's not what I was expecting this book to be, just based on how it was like presented and how it was described. I was looking for it to be much more about the mystery and like solving the mystery and all that kind of stuff. The first 3/4 of the book was just the characters and you getting into their personal lives and their families and their siblings and their relationships with each other and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I didn't come here for any of that. I don't care about you guys. I don't want to know about any of that. Let's just try to figure out who done it. Like, that's what I came here for. So that's my personal reason why I didn't care for the book. But I think the show did a good job of balancing the two and making it, you know, suspenseful and continuing with the mystery aspect of things, while also like giving us the characters. Now the ending was very different in the book than it was in the show. Overall, the show was better than the book. So do with that information what you will. I would say just save yourself time. If you don't care about reading the rest of the books in the series and you're just here for a good story, then just watch the show. If you are the kind of person that likes character-driven books, then you probably would really enjoy the book, and you might even enjoy the book more than the show. So me personally, I like the show better, but you know, to each his own, like I always say. And there you have it. That is the end of my first read it or watch it video. If you have recommendations for books that have been adapted that you'd like me to include in the next episode of this series, let me know that down below in the comments. I have a couple that I know I want to do, but I'm always open to suggestions. As always, my socials and all that will be down below in the description box. Like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye. They just want to go home. That's literally how I feel like every time I leave my house. Like I resonate with them.